Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delay tonight. I'm Zen Master Sebastian Rizzon, founder of the Mind Light Way School of Zen, and I host these guided meditations on the first Thursday. Everyone, sorry for the delay tonight. And the sound works. Yeah, you can also find these. So I was saying I host these on the first Thursday of every month, and I have a Dharma talk on the third Thursday of every month from 7 to 8 p.m. You can also find these and other curated content on the Mind Light Way School of Zen YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining us. Have you ever had a moment where everything felt clear? You felt focused. You knew exactly what to do. Everything seemed to come together. And then it didn't last. Something pulls you out of it. You lost it. Why does this happen? Before starting this school, I lived in a Zen Buddhist temple for 16 years, and that's something I spent a lot of time trying to understand. I'll be sharing with you tonight, what I'll be sharing with you tonight comes from over 20 years of studying and practicing Zen. And eventually, I became a master under my teacher, great Zen Master Chengsi Kim. One of the most important things I learned from him was this. Zen training is more than just sitting meditation. It has to become part of everything you do. All the work we did around the temple was a form of meditation. Manual labor, cleaning, maintaining the space. My teacher called it work study. At the time, I didn't fully understand why we were doing it. It just felt like work. But over time, it became clear. This was one of the most effective ways to cultivate clarity. This way of training isn't something new. It goes back more than 1,000 years. During China's Tang Dynasty, there was a Zen master named Baizhang. Even in his old age, he worked in the fields every day alongside his students. That's what he's remembered for. He was constantly demonstrating clarity through his work. His work was his teaching. Zen practice isn't just listening to your teacher or meditating. Your life and your work are the practice. So tonight, I ask you to consider your mind as a garden. This is part of the work. We're going to explore why some seeds grow and some don't. Before we begin, I want you to plant this question in your mind. If your seeds aren't growing, what's missing? Don't try to answer that now. Just let that question sit with you like a seed as we go through these meditations. When we sit for meditation, we'll typically sit with our legs crossed, our hands in the mudra position, right hand, left hand, touching your thumbs, centered in your lap. Keep your neck and back straight and your shoulders relaxed. You can also feel free to modify these positions if they're not comfortable for you. And if you become uncomfortable during the meditation, feel free to stand up and stretch. Just try to be mindful of those meditating around you. With that said, let's begin with a breathing technique to prepare your body for meditation. Start by breathing slower and deeper than you usually do. Bring your attention to the center of your chest. Visualize your heart there as you breathe. As you listen to my voice, continue to slow and deepen your breath. Feel your breath coming in through your nose and mouth, collecting all of the energy from your head and guiding it down into your heart. Imagine that you're breathing with your heart. You can place your hand on your heart and close your eyes if you'd like. Keep breathing slow, deep, and steady. The purpose of this practice is to align our mind, heart, and body. This is a technique you can use to reset yourself whenever you feel anxious, scattered, or when you need to shift from different activities that you're doing throughout the day. If you practice this technique of slow and deep breathing regularly, you can learn to reset yourself in any moment by taking some slow and deep breaths. Let's practice together now for a few minutes. Taking slow and deep breaths. For our next meditation, we'll focus the mind on a mantra. A mantra is a focal point of meditation. It's a tool for the mind. We use the mantra to focus our attention. If your mind is wandering, it's difficult to maintain clarity. The purpose of a mantra is simple: to return your attention to the present moment, again and again. For the next portion of class, we'll be using different forms of mantras. For our next meditation, we'll use our breath as a mantra again to help us clear the mind. For this practice, just sit still and quietly count your breaths. Keep count every time you exhale. If you lose count, that's a sign that you've lost your focus. When you notice this, don't judge yourself. Simply start over and begin counting again. Using this technique is like tilling the ground of your mind, turning over the earth until the soil is clear and the seeds can take root. You can do this with your eyes opened or closed, but if your eyes are open, let your gaze rest towards the floor. Now let's practice this together for a few minutes. I'll hit the moktak to start and finish. Now we'll shift our meditation to sound. Focusing our attention on the sound of a singing bowl. Let the sound fill your awareness. Think of it like observing the conditions in the environment, the seasons, the weather, the timing. When your mind is clear, you begin to recognize the frequency of the patterns around you. When you see the patterns, you realize there's a time to act, there's a time to wait, and a time to rest. Now is just the time to listen. Let the sound wash over your mind and carry your thoughts away. If they return, just come back to focusing on the sound. Next, we'll turn our attention to clearing the weeds, getting rid of the things we don't want growing in our mind. Holding on to anger, resentment, or regret is like letting weeds grow in your garden. They block the light and take energy away from what you're trying to grow. We can let these things go through forgiveness. Forgiveness stops feeding these harmful feelings until they begin to wither away. It's not about excusing harm or accepting harm. It's about letting go of what's blocking the light of your mind from reaching the seeds that you want to grow. So take a few minutes in this next meditation to forgive yourself and others. Clear the weeds with forgiveness so the light of your mind can shine through. In the next meditation, we'll focus on gratitude. Gratitude is a recognition of what you have, an acknowledgement of appreciation. Gratitude creates the conditions for growth. It's like enriching the soil, allowing what you've planted to grow and develop. For this meditation, take a few moments to bring to mind what you're grateful for. I like to remind myself to be thankful for my health, for my family, my friends, and my teachers. What you're thankful for can be general or specific. Even when things feel difficult, there's always something to be grateful for. Now, close your eyes for a few minutes and reflect on what you're thankful for. If nothing comes to mind, that's okay. You can simply repeat a few things that you're grateful for, like a mantra. Now we'll focus our meditation on prayer. These are the seeds that you choose to plant. It's up to you what you place in your mind. You can pray for yourself, for others, for the world. I usually pray for good health, happiness, and success in what I'm doing. I also pray for the well-being of my family, my friends, my teachers, and for everyone in the world. You can pray for someone who's struggling or for peace and harmony. You can pray for anything. In this moment, what you bring to your mind is what you're planting. So take a few minutes to focus on your prayers. For this final meditation, we'll use a word or a phrase as our mantra. Simply repeat it in your mind. When you meditate, thoughts will arise. You don't need to stop them. Just don't follow them. Return to the mantra again and again. You can choose any mantra you'd like, and if you don't have one you prefer, I suggest using the mantra of Kwanseum Bosal. Kwanseum Bosal is the name of the bodhisattva of love and compassion in Korean Zen. Repeat it quietly in your mind. It's Kwanseum Bosal. Kwanseum Bosal. Each time you return to the mantra, you bring your attention back to this moment. This practice helps you sustain what you've planted, like giving water to your seeds. So let's meditate on the mantra together for the next few minutes. Now let's continue. In our metaphor of the mind as a garden, we prepared the soil, we cleared the weeds, we planted the seeds. Up to this point, everything we've done has been internal. But this is where most people misunderstand something essential about Zen practice. When I was living in a temple, work wasn't separate from the meditation practice. It was part of the practice. Early on, I didn't fully understand it. It just felt like work. But my teacher wasn't just asking us to help. He was showing us that your practice is expressed through your actions. And this is exactly what Baizhang was showing his students when he worked in the fields. At one point, when his students hid his tools because they were concerned he was working too hard for someone his age, and he refused to eat until they returned his tools. He said, "A day without work is a day without food." He was telling him that the work is what sustained him. The labor and the fruits of the labor are inseparable. In terms of our work, or in terms of our metaphor, the internal work, preparing the soil, pulling the weeds, and planting the seeds, is just the beginning. If you don't apply this work in your life and tend to your garden, nothing grows. How you meet the situation in front of you, what you take responsibility for, and whether you follow through, that is your garden. That is what my teacher was showing me. Not through explanation, but through how he lived. Clarity doesn't just appear in meditation and stay with you when you're done. It needs to be sustained through your actions. Clarity is sustained by directly engaging with what needs to be done. If something needs to be done and you take clear action, that is Zen practice. Some people say they want enlightenment, but they don't have time to meditate and practice. They don't realize the work that needs to be done is right in front of them. It doesn't go away because you ignore it or you don't have time for it. If you don't do the work, you won't get the fruit that sustains you. At the beginning of this talk, I asked you, have you ever had a moment where everything felt clear and then it didn't last? Why does that happen? It's not because the clarity disappeared. It's because it wasn't sustained. The garden wasn't taken care of. Meditation prepares the ground, but your life is where everything grows. If you don't take care of what's in front of you, if you don't follow through, if you don't meet the situation in front of you with clarity, you won't see your flowers blossom or taste the fruit. But if you take care of what needs to be done with your full attention, clarity takes root and it grows into everything you do. That's what my teacher showed me. That's what Baizhang was showing his students. Practice isn't just what you do in class or on the meditation cushion. It's your life. Your life is your garden. If you tend to it with your full attention, you'll begin to notice how beautiful it becomes. Thank you for practicing with me tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions hear from anyone here or anyone in the live chat if you've got any questions about this talk, about anything I've said before. Happy to entertain some questions for a few minutes. Do you have something on your mind? You had a look in your eye, that's why I asked. Anyone in the chat? I'm giving one last chance here. You sure? I feel like you're holding back.
No, just contemplating the question still.
Oh, here we go. Momo Lee asks, what's the difference between the type of meditation when we're given a topic to think about, like gratitude, weeds, prayers, and the type of meditation where we try to clear the mind? It's a great question. So clearing the mind is like tilling the soil. The soil doesn't do anything by itself. You need seeds. You have to have a seed for something to grow. So that's what the gratitude, the weed, and the prayers, they have different reason, different effects, I guess, different forms of seeds. In truth, what I'm trying to teach with this talk is that your mind has to be clear in everything you do. And how do you do that? You give your focus to whatever you're doing 100% with whatever's in front of you. So if you're meditating on gratitude, prayers, forgiveness, or just a mantra, the idea is 100% focused on that thing. These are all sitting meditation. But the other thing I was trying to point to is that in your life, everything you do has to become a meditation. So it doesn't end on the cushion, that really all of these things are the same. They have the same effect. If you focus on them 100%, it clears your mind. Because then thinking doesn't come between you and what you're doing. Or even if you are thinking, it's clear thought. It's like directed thought about what you're doing. So that's actually the kind of the key we are using in the mantra meditation, is using something to focus on, whether it's a word or a phrase, a question, a prayer, giving thanks. These are all just different places to focus your mind. And so always, Zen is completely engaging with whatever you're doing, whether it's a mantra to clear your mind, whether it's a prayer, whether it's washing your dishes or sweeping the floors or working in the garden. These are all ways we train to clear our mind at the temple. And so what I was hoping to do was kind of draw all of these things together and show that they're not separable. Like the fruit, the flowers, that's what everybody wants, but it's 100% linked to the work and the attention you're giving the work. And whether those seeds come to fruition, whether they blossom, it depends on you doing the work of engaging with what you're doing completely. Did you have a question? I thought I saw something like that. So in some way, it's different paths to the same thing. All of these different forms of meditation. Paths to a clear mind. Clarity in what you're doing, no matter what it is. That's the idea today. Why do you have moments of clarity and then they fade? Because your attention gets drawn out of the moment. Your mind starts to wander. If you can always bring it back in focus, then everything you do can become a meditation. But it's easy to say, but it's harder to do. It takes practice. That's why we practice meditation. We practice work study. We practice different forms of meditation. When I lived at the temple, so much of that was, my teacher helping you realize when you're losing focus or when your mind is not in the moment. Yeah.
Do you notice kind of a difference in, or I guess like it harder to be mindful because of our kind of reliance on like technology now and just the overstimulation of everyday life? I notice sometimes with my thoughts, there's the thoughts and then there's sometimes just a song or like sounds and things that I've heard throughout the day that's more just like stimulation around me that I'm taking in.
The question, I'm just going to repeat it in case people didn't hear it online, is if technology makes it harder to be mindful and engaged with every moment. I think I don't want to blame the technology, but I think there are, per se, I think that the technology itself is somewhat agnostic, but the way people are using it and the way, different programs are trying to engage your, engagement farm, basically. So they're trying to capture your mind and take it out of what you're doing, sometimes to something abstract or, something you're not directly involved with. A lot of it's about getting your emotions fired up. I think I can see why you would think it's technology's fault, but I think these issues have been around even without technology, or thousands of years ago at the Zen temples, people were still trying to isolate themselves from society to kind of cut off the sensory stimulation. So I think, maybe I don't know, it's hard to say if it's worse or better. I think there's definitely more things trying to take your attention and get your mind to wander and get absorbed into something else. I think you can theoretically engage with technology in a healthy way, but they don't make it easy. So yeah, I think but I think it's good to just recognize what's happening. Is it a healthy interaction, or is it something that's pulling you out, distracting you, getting in the way of the things you really want to do? Yeah, I think a lot of times it can just give you a lot of, it can fill your mind with a lot of ideas that may or may not serve you. And I think, in the past, maybe these ideas all came from ourselves, and now we have other people's ideas layering into that. So I think, in that way, things like social media, if you consider that a technology, probably do make it more difficult. But that makes this kind of attention and to what you're doing and how it's making you feel. Like, if you feel like it's raising your anxiety, your stress, making you feel sad about your own life, or incomplete because you're not somewhere tropical on the other side of the world, it can have all these different effects. The point of Zen is what's in front of you right now and what do you need to do. And just fully engaging with what that is. And my experience is when you do that, even when the activity itself isn't what you would think is like the most wonderful activity in the world, at the temple, for instance, you could be sweeping the floor or doing something or working in the garden. I remember working in the garden one time, and at the beginning of the work, it was a work period at the temple. At the beginning of the work period, all I could think about was like the night before, all of these like kind of thoughts and feelings about the night before, and being really frustrated with what I was having to work in the garden. But something like clicked as I started to just push out the things in my mind and just focus on like literally pulling up weeds. I realized the reason I was suffering so bad is because my mind was wandering about things outside of my control that had happened in the past, and I was anticipating what was happening what would happen in the future, and I was not in that moment. And then when I had this moment of inspiration and I was pulling the weeds, I looked up and just noticed I was in a beautiful garden, making it beautiful, more beautiful by pulling out the weeds, by tending to the garden. This is a literal story. It's not a metaphor at this point. And when I had that, it was like a moment of clarity. And when I had that moment of clarity, that was a gift. It stopped my suffering instantaneously. And I was still doing really hard work. Like, it was like kneeling on the ground, pulling up weeds. But I was happier then. Yeah, that was one of the first realizations that I had that kind of inspired this talk tonight, and why I like the idea of your mind as a garden. But yeah, I think it's less important what the activity is and more just about like how focused you are. I've talked about this before, but there was a Harvard study that studied happiness, and they surveyed people, and they asked them what are they doing and how happy are they, and how focused are you on what you're doing. And they found that the number one factor for the happiness was not what you were doing, it was how focused you are. Kurt asks, I found it challenging to surrender to emotional sensations during the day at work and interacting with other people. Do you have advice? Thank you. So, I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. I'm not sure. I might be getting it off. I might be off a little bit, but I'm not sure exactly what you mean by surrendering to emotional sensations. I think in conversations, interacting with other people, it's easy to get to have emotional reactions and emotional responses. I think that's normal. However, I think even in these moments, I think listening to other people, focusing on listening versus trying to anticipate where the conversation's going, kind of letting your own emotion, trying to let your own emotions settle and really focus on what's happening. I guess at work, sometimes people might be actually doing things to intentionally rile up your emotions. So, or maybe even unintentionally, but you interpret it that way. It's not easy to always do in real time. That's probably the hardest thing to do, but trying to really pay attention when you're in the conversations to what's happening, what's being said, listening, trying not to let your mind race to what all of it means and what the implications are, just trying to stay engaged with what's happening. But also, if you do find yourself getting emotionally charged in a way that you think is not helpful to the situation, withdrawing from, disengaging from the conversation, the source of the emotional whatever's overwhelming your emotional sense, and finding a moment to take a few deep breaths. Even breathing more intentionally when you're in the conversation, taking deeper breaths, slowing down your breath. It usually will send a message to your body to start relaxing. So that meditation we did at the beginning, the mind-heart breathing, is just slow and steady breathing. If you're finding your heart starts to race, or you're getting hot because you're angry or stressed out, whatever the situation may be, remind yourself to breathe slow. Take some slow and deep breaths. If you can find a moment to yourself to do it, it's usually easier to do. But in real time, these would be some suggestions I'd have. I think one of the issues is that I should probably mention is that it doesn't just happen when you need it because you need it. It works because you practice in the good times. And then when it's like a challenging time, the practice kicks in. So if you have a meditation routine, if you're practicing being mindful, doing things like washing a dish or going for a walk, things like this, different activities you do, these are the things that train your mind to stay in the moment. So when you're getting an emotional stimulus that's strong, keeping your mind in the moment helps you kind of calm that down. But if you haven't been practicing, it doesn't work that well. So that's why we do practice at different times, regardless of how you're feeling. Come and meditate, come and do these different forms of meditations that we practice together. And then when you need them, the tools will work. It's like if you have a tool and you've never used it before, and all of a sudden you have to build a house, it's not going to work for you. You have to practice using the tool, and then when you need it to do something, you know how to use it and how to use it effectively. So that would be kind of my advice for those immediate situations when it's happening, and also really the magic happens because you practice consistently and practice applying it not just on the cushion but in different parts of your life. What are you doing? How are you engaging? Are you focused? I hope that's helpful for you. But I really would say having a consistent practice will be the key to this really working for you when you need it. Thanks for the question. That's a good one. All right, well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. If you have more questions that you didn't get in tonight, first of all, I appreciate you coming and asking questions and joining us in the practice. But if you'd like to ask more questions, we'll be here again in 2 weeks for the Dharma talk. And whether it's a Dharma talk or a meditation, I always have question and answers afterwards. Also, if you'd like to continue your practice and stay connected outside of these events, we have an Inner Circle membership, and we have a couple of community meetups, and it's all online. So we'll be having, it'll be a little open, but we'll have it's a discussion group about Zen practice and how we're using it in our daily lives. So questions just like this. And I'll be there, but also all of the community members and the students training to become Zen teachers and members of the community. So if you'd like to be a part of that, check out the Inner Circle membership on our website, mindlightway.org. I think there's probably a link in the description as well. And you'll all find all our schedule there as well. We have Dharma talks, guided meditations, creative art and writing groups, full moon ceremonies, and other offerings like a Bollywood dance class. So check it out at mindlightway.org, and you can find all this on our meetup page as well. Thank you for joining us. Our school and programming only exists because people choose to support it through membership and donation. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so if you'd like to help us out and leave a donation, there's information in the description of the YouTube channel and in the YouTube stream description, so you can check it out there. And if you're in person near the door, your generosity is truly appreciated. I really appreciate you all coming out and joining us, asking such great questions. Thanks again for being part of our community. Have a good night.